Hey guys, how's it going? Lloyd Carter here from Wing Magma. Welcome to the first episode of the Wing Magma podcast, where we discuss all things Wing Magma and also the Wednesday Wang playlist that I'm curating over on Spotify. If you are a fan of this type of thing, please come and follow me on Instagram at Wing Magma, TikTok at Wing Magma, YouTube at Wing Magma. Everything is just at Wing Magma. Just, search Wing Magma. Hopefully you'll find me and you can get involved. So yeah, podcast. Some people may have been a little bit surprised that I was doing a podcast. I've always wanted to do a podcast, and I'm just hoping that I've got enough to talk about here. I think I have. I think there's plenty going on with Wing Magma, but also the Wednesday Wang playlist is also going to be a lot of fun to talk about as well. So yeah, it's going to be in two parts. Just a bit of an update as to what's been going on in Wing Magma, because there's probably quite a lot to catch up on. I had a pretty decent start last year. It was a huge kind of achievement for me to write and record a song, and to get it released was also a bit of a mammoth task. I kind of wrongly assumed that once I did one of these things that just many more would trickle afterwards, and it's just not that simple. It's an ongoing commitment, not just to the project, but to kind of personal growth. It's something that it's ongoing, and I just kind of thought that it would happen on its own, and it didn't. So my plan is to recommit to doing that, and because it's unfinished in my mind. I've still got plenty of songs that I'd like to record and release, and it's something that I'm still very passionate about. I just like the passion and the ideas are one thing. It really does take a little bit more drive than I'd originally considered, but here we are, and like I say, I'm giving it as much of as a crack as I possibly can now. So I haven't been completely dormant all that time. I have got another song that's ready to go. It's completely finished. I've been working on that with Dave Tidmarsh again. It started off, I was recording bits and bobs here and sending them across to Dave to mix at his studio. I think he was getting a little bit annoyed with how out of tune my guitars are. In general, like I say, because I can't get them to behave. They just they do what they want to do, and Dave kind of wanted me in his studio so that he could keep a close eye on that and make sure that it was tight as possible. It's the proof is in the recording pudding, because it does sound really, really decent. It sounds huge. The production on it is, it sounds great. Really, really chuffed with what Dave has done for that. And but I don't want. What I don't want to do is release one song at a time. So I'm going to be working towards an EP. At least 4 tracks are going to be on that. So Memory Holes will be one of them. These Wires will be another. There's a track that I'm working on at the moment the working title is Murders. And if anybody follows my Instagram, you would have heard the bass line for it. Earlier this week, or last week by the time this comes out. I'm really excited about where this track is going. My plan is to kind of go a little bit out of my comfort zone in terms of instrumentation. I'm a kind of guitar, bass, drums kind of guy, and I'd like to see where else I may be able to take this. Hence getting back in the studio with Dave Tidmarsh. Hopefully when things are a little less restricted, in the world. But in terms of how that's coming along, I'm really, like I say, I'm chuffed with where it's going. I've got probably about 80% of the song done. I need a few more lyrics and probably a better hook and for the chorus. But the verses are there, and I'm really enjoying where it's going. In terms of my plans for songs 4 and possibly 5, if it's going to be 4, then it'll be between a song called Cinders, which could potentially just be very, very stripped back. I've done versions of it with quite, larger arrangements, but I just felt like I was just adding nothing when I was adding stuff, but it didn't really make the song any better. And I did a version of it with just playing the riff. It's in a funky tuning again, and I've got a version where I played the riff or the guitar line on the bass 6, and it just had this really deep baritone kind of vibe to it, which made it a bit eerie, which really suited the track. So that could be quite an easy one to get recorded and done. But there's another track called All the Beatles Are Dead, which is something that I've been working on again for a very, very long time, even longer than Memory Holes. This kind of goes back to about 2007. That's just so embarrassing, how long I've been kind of harboring a lot of this stuff. I've worked on it. Yeah, it was 2007. I was working on it with Andy Coles, an absolutely incredible drummer. I'm not sure if that's the version that I will go for, which may be a shame, but Andy, if you're listening, you're gonna have to come over and record the drums again or something. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But the purpose of this EP, of one, to get something out, but I do want to kind of at some point bookmark this era, and the era obviously it's vast, but I don't want Wing Magma to be a vehicle for my old songs. I do want to kind of break new ground and explore and experiment new things. So, like I said, but I've got all of these ideas, so it's just kind of, what do you do? So I'm going to get most of these oldies, like nobody's heard them, but like, do you know what I mean? Like, I want to get onto new stuff, but I don't want these ideas just to disappear. So we shall see how it goes. There's certainly a lot to do and a lot to be done. And like I say, now that I'm kind of putting a lot more of my energy and focus into things like this podcast, it's all with the purpose of driving Wing Magma forward and getting some more music out there. So that's what I've been up to now. Over the next week, it's definitely going to be sorting lyrics and finalising bits and bobs for Murders. And then I'm also going to start getting things ready for probably Cinders would be the easier one, but who knows, we shall see. So so that is all things Wing Magma. So the next part of the podcast is going to be about discussing the Wednesday Wang playlist. So the thought behind this is it will be a playlist that I update weekly. People can subscribe to it or follow it or whatever on Spotify, and it'll be a bit of an insight as to what I'm listening to, what's kind of influencing Wing Magma. I'll be able to give a little bit of a spotlight to people that I think need a little spotlight, and just to kind of spread the love for artists that I'm into. I'll also be reviewing a few bits and bobs. there's a format that my friend Jamie Marlowe came up with called In a Nutshell. It was a really good idea where it was about just doing very short and to the point reviews of albums or whatever. I'd like to take that kind of micro review a little step further and just do 1 minute reviews. So there's a few tracks that I'm going to be doing that with. I won't be reviewing them in this podcast. I'll probably be putting them out as shorter pieces of social media content. But the songs that I'm going to review are in this playlist. And then also, like, I've just got a bunch of recommendations that people have given to me. So just like, you know, friends will ping like ideas or tracks to check out, or, you know, I'm listening to this. So like, I've got a bunch of those in there. Some of them I've not got around to yet, but like, this is what I'm going to be listening to over the next week or so. So I guess let's dive into it. So the first chunk of the playlist is what I've been listening to just in heavy rotation over the last week. So I've just been binging And So I Watch You From Afar, mainly over the last couple of weeks. Well, certainly over this week. I'm not really sure what's triggered it either. I mean, like, every now and then, like, they're a band that I love. You know, they're a great band. Quite, you know, they've got a very special kind of place for me, because, you know, we played some shows with them very early on in their career, toward the end of our career. But like, you know, they're just such great guys, and we had such a great time with them. So they'll always be very dear to me, those guys. But I don't know, I think their music is predominantly instrumental, so it kind of helps with focus at work. You know, I can have that on, and it's that right level of heavy and intense that's not kind of overpowering. It's melodic, it's challenging, it's just great. It's just great. They're like just all around great stuff. I mean, like, I'm more of a fan of their latter stuff. You know, like when we were involved with them, obviously it was their first album. You know, so those tracks have got a very nostalgic, you know, place in my mind. But they've just continued to evolve, and their stuff is just, compared to what they were playing when we were playing with them, it's through the roof now. So there's a few tracks here from some of their latter albums that I've been just listening to a great deal. Well worth checking out. Radiohead, yeah, so anyone that gives me the time of day to talk about music, you know, Radiohead are just, you know, they are my band. You know, like, I love that band deeply. I've been listening to them a lot recently because Lily, my daughter, is discovering them, I guess. So I've kind of Lily draws quite a lot, and she's asked me to put on In Rainbows, which I just think is just so cool. Like, I don't intentionally try to overly influence their opinions on music. I kind of have it around so that it's a clear choice for them, but I don't say, right, you must listen to this. And, you know, I do want I want my kids to have their own tastes, and perfectly cool if it's different from mine. But it's just, I don't know, because Radiohead are so important to me, and now my daughter is, you know, discovering them. It's just like, wow, it's pretty incredible. But yeah, like, she draws, and she asked to listen to In Rainbows, and she started drawing what she saw, and she drew this girl with a third eye, and it was just like, oh my god, Lily, you're like 8. Like, and I don't know, like, I don't know where that came from, but it's just like, I just thought it was incredibly incredible. So Lily's been helping me to listen to more Radiohead. I've been telling her more about like some of their older stuff, like OK Computer and stuff like that, and she appears to be enjoying it. And Charlie, my 4-year-old son, is really into the Smiths. Like, what's that all about? It's just so bizarre, but it's true. Like, if I ever say to Charlie, "Do you want to listen to any music? What do you want to listen to?" and he'll say the Smiths. It's just like, that's just beyond cool in my mind. I again, a band that are very, very dear to me, but a 4-year-old boy into the Smiths, like I say, there's just something quite tragic about that, I think. Poor sod. But yeah, so those sorry, excuse me, I hit the microphone. Those tracks are what I've been listening to predominantly over the last week or so. So the artist of the week, I don't know I can't remember what I called this, but like Laundromat. So Laundromat is a project, I guess is what you'd call it, by Tobias Hayes. So Toby used to sing and play bass in a band called Meet Me in St. Louis, and we met those guys way back when, played a bunch of shows with them, and Toby left that band, and there was always this kind of longing for Meet Me in St. Louis. They got back together for like a couple of shows a few years ago, and we went to see him, and it was just so great. But Toby is, since Meet Me in St. Louis, has been very, very prolific, and he's been in all sorts of different projects and bands and whatnot. And I doubt I even know all of them, but I've kind of followed him as far as Shoes and Socks Off was something that he did. Shield Your Eyes, they were an incredible band that he was involved in. Vincent Vocoder, I want to say Eugene Quell, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. But if he's doing something, I'll always check it out, because I've just always consistently enjoyed whatever he does. And now he is doing something called Laundromat. So obviously found out it was him, and started to get involved in it, and he was kind of drip feeding tracks last year. And the Blue EP is just, I was listening to that over and over and over last year. It's just, I love it. I don't use this lightly, but there is a David Bowie vibe to some of his stuff. Not in terms of he sounds, like vocally like David Bowie or anything like that, but it just feels like, the Berlin kind of period where David Bowie was kind of experimenting with layers and textures and things like that. I get that kind of vibe from Laundromat. It doesn't necessarily sound specifically like any particular era from David Bowie, but it's just got that super, creative element to it, which it's just, I don't know. And on top of all of that, it's incredibly melodic, it's incredibly palatable, well worth checking out. Like, it's fantastic stuff. Oh, look what we got here. It's Memory Holes by Ring Magma. Who put that in there? Like, guys, I'm not gonna lie, like, this whole thing is about listen to my stuff, so like, shoot me. I put my own track in my playlist, whatever. Just try not to skip it. is all I can ask of you guys. So now I'm into a list of recommendations. So a bunch of my friends will either message me directly or they'll post something, and it's just how I hear about music nowadays, I guess. So Beauty by Tiger Cub, Jamie Marlowe again, he's probably my clearest route to new music. He's kind of constantly so I'm saying, check this out, have you heard this yet? You know, he's kind of very much got his finger on the pulse there. So he told me about Tiger Cub anyway. I think he saw them support Royal Blood when Royal Blood were playing small, you know, venue shows. And, you know, we've been to see Tiger Cub a bunch of times. You know, great band. You know, grunge, Nirvana-y type of vibes. But we went to see them not last October, the October before, so 2019. They played a show at their rehearsal studio. They just invited, you know, like 100 odd people into their rehearsal studio, and they played Songs for the Deaf by Queens of the Stone Age, like in its entirety. It was just such a great gig. They did the album a great deal of justice. And I don't know if it's a coincidence, you know, like I don't know if I would have felt the same about this track had I had not been to that gig. But you know, this track it's just got Queen's vibes all over it, like in a really good way for me. You know, like I'm not, you know, it's kind of deep, heavy riffs, melodic, dark. You know, it's all the things that I love. Well worth checking out. Jay also recommended Chelsea Wolfe, American Darkness. Again, very chilled, very moody, quite interesting. Not entirely sure if it's 100% my bag, but I've only listened to it like 2 or 3 times, so I probably need to give it a bit more of a spin. Sunglasses by Black Country New Road. So this came up in a conversation with Tin and one of my friends who I've been in a few bands with. He pinged us this message, and he said, at 6 minutes, does this sound like a public relations exercise song? So let me know what you think, anybody that remembers public relations exercise. But I think it's a bit of a stretch to say that it, like, these guys have ripped off PRE, considering how many people we ripped off in PRE. But I think it's very much of that kind of, it's a rhythm very much of that, you know, post rock. I don't know what we would have been classed as, but in terms of what this song is, this is very intense. It's what, like 8-9 minutes long, kind of swells in a very dark kind of mess, and then it kind of breaks into this rhythm which is just very dark, and I keep saying dark, it's very repetitive, and kind of gets into a bit of a trance, I guess. Weird. It's odd. See how you think and feel about it, I guess. So one of the designers that I work with, Joe Allen, posted on his Instagram earlier this week parcels, new to me, but I just like, this kind of genre is very much a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine. Like, it's just really super tight, well produced. I don't want to say funk. It's kind of got a Nile Rodgers vibe to it. Prince. It's kind of that kind of stuff, you know, like where the musicianship is just absolutely on point, and they are just like tight as a nut. But yeah, like, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really fun. Yeah, really, really cool. Welcome to the Pleasure Dome. Franky Goes to Hollywood. So there's another designer that I work with, a very, very talented guy called Alex Warwick, and I hope at some point I'll get him on this podcast and be able to talk about music and stuff like that, because we frequently just go off on tangents. You know, we'll be talking about work stuff and just get sidetracked completely by, talking quite passionately about music. He pinged me this a message saying, right, I've listened to this song. It's 14 minutes long or whatever, and I've listened to it back to back, and I think it's great. So it's just like, I've listened to it once, and I probably need to listen to it a couple more times. But like, I mean, like, I know the hits for Franky Goes Hollywood. I've never really. This is kind of a bit of a deep cut that I've never really thought to explore. But it's interesting. It's cool. Like, so hopefully you guys will think the same. So I've got a couple of tracks here that have just kind of randomly popped into my head, and I don't really know why. I'm not sure what has triggered them, but I thought I'd put them in here because Babushka, Kate Bush, like, it just came, like, just had a sudden pang that I needed to listen to Babushka by Kate Bush. Again, kids loved it, and we were just kind of in the kitchen and the kids were dancing and stuff like that. It was just a very sweet moment. But so Babushka made it to the playlist. Now, right, Manic Street Preachers, Little Baby Nothing. I used to be like a huge Manic Street Preachers fan when I was probably about 14, 15 years old. They were a very, very important band to me at that time. Like, they occupied a very specific point of my life. But Generation Terrorist was never an album that I was particularly into. I think it's not aged particularly well. Even back when I was listening to it, 97, 98 maybe, when it wasn't even that old, it hadn't aged well at all. But there's some great tracks on it. But like Little Baby Nothing, it's a very profound track, and it kind of came into my head. I don't know, like the kind of used by men line for some reason was in my head, so I kind of listened to it and was just taken back. Not back in time. I was taken back by just how ahead of the curve these guys were. Manic Street Preachers, they were swimming upstream against so many issues, and at the time, what they represented for me, as a teenager, that I was figuring out who I was, what felt right for me, what I believed in, and what these guys were representing in terms of, they just kind of had this very, I guess nowadays it would be called, or they were very anti-toxic masculinity. Now that phrase sums up a lot of things very, very well for me, about certain behaviors that I just cannot subscribe to, never have been able to, and at that point in my life it was very hard not to get sucked up into toxic masculinity. There was never really that term for it back when I was 14, 15, but the Manic Street Preachers helped validate my feelings about being opposed to all of that kind of stuff. It wasn't just okay to be different, it was, you have to be against that. You have to kind of be in your face and opposed to that type of behavior. So like I say, I was aware of what they stood for, but like not as much as listening to it now. I mean, like Little Baby Nothing is a very feminist, pro-feminist song, and at the time I wouldn't have, it kind of flew over my head, but listening to it now, I was just like, wow, these guys were talking about this issue so long ago. Like, what, 30? No. Yeah. Wow, 30 years ago that song came out. Like, wow, that's incredible. I didn't realize it was that old, but like, but like I was watching the video, and it could be something that would, raise eyebrows now in terms of what they are, their morals, what they're standing for, what they're promoting. And that's crazy. Like, those guys were doing that so long ago. Like, you know, fair play to them. You know, hooray for the Manic Street Preachers, I guess. So then I'm on to a few artists that I've kind of discovered on my own, which I want to give a bit of a shout out to. So Wire by Omni. I really dig this band. I certainly dig this album, Deluxe. I wasn't a big fan of some of their other stuff, but this album is great. It's very lo-fi, kind of minimalist pop. It's kind of got a bit of a Strokes vibe to it, but a little bit more slacker, I guess. But really interesting kind of rhythms and stuff like that. Very, very melodic. But I just don't know really anybody else that listens to them or likes them. So hopefully I'm not on my own and people will like this stuff. I want to say that this band is called Mulcher. I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce this. I was downloading a file at work from WeTransfer, and there was just like a big advert for this band, and I just thought, this is a really weird place to advertise music. So I took them up on the offer, and I really liked it. It's kind of like Kraftwerk meets Joy Division. It's really, really dark, moody. I think they're Polish. I'm not entirely sure where they come from. Might be Russian. I have no idea. But yeah, it's well worth checking out. Really, really weird, lo-fi, dark as F pop. Really good. Tech Noir by Gunship. So yeah, like over the last kind of 2 years, I've kind of discovered Synthwave and just massively enjoy listening to Synthwave music. It just sounds like you're in an Amiga game or something like that. It's just like, or every rocky montage you've ever seen could be soundtracked by Synthwave. And this track in particular is really decent. There's a couple of Gunship albums, and what I really like about the Gunship albums is that, you know, there's a version with vocals and then there's a version without, and I probably prefer the instrumental stuff, but I've included the vocal version here because this track is it's great. Really love the melody, certainly in the chorus. But yeah, like post-apocalyptic kind of 80s movie vibes. Really, really decent. Now moving on to the reviews that I'm intending on doing. So I went on to New Release Radar, and there are I was quite pleasantly surprised to see so many new tracks from bands that I quite like. So I will be giving these a listen, and I'll be, you know, pumping out short reviews of each of them. So we've got Echoing by Kings of Leon, Heat Above by Greta Van Fleet, 1+1 by Death from Above 1979. Now that's a bit odd for me because I'm pretty sure they dropped the 1979, but you know, whatever, they've got it back now. Making a Fire, Foo Fighters. So I've heard a few bits and bobs about this album. I think there's a lot of stuff kicking around on YouTube trying to promote it. I know they did Howard Stern and stuff like that, but I've heard that they are experimenting. I think that was probably a relative term, but Foo Fighters have been doing what the Foo Fighters do, and they've been doing it for a long time, so fair play. See what else they can see what they've got in their locker, I guess. And AWOL by Every Time I Die. So I wouldn't say I was like a big fan of Every Time I Die, like I couldn't, but they're just one of these bands that I remember. Edjadowski, the drummer that we had in Laserbeast, he was into Every Time I Die. And just a lot of fun, very, very energetic, heavy, I'm looking forward to getting into that. And that is the end of the Wednesday Wang playlist. So yeah, I guess that is the end of the first episode of the Wing Magma podcast. Really enjoyed putting this together. Really hoping that other people tune into the Wednesday Wang playlist and get involved in my other social media channels, which are, we've got the Wednesday Wang playlist on Spotify, at Wing Magma, on Instagram, at Wing Magma, on TikTok, at Wing Magma, on YouTube. And if you have a look on Buzzsprout, that's where I'm going to be hosting this podcast, for those who are watching it on another medium. Like I say, really enjoyed doing this. Looking forward to doing more. And I guess I'll see you guys soon. Take care.